My name is Dominic Armendariz. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, a past national board member of the American Institute of Architecture Students, and an incoming Master of Architecture candidate at the University of Texas at Austin. We are here with Ed Vance, CEO of EV&A Architects, and the 2019 Chancellor of the AIA College of Fellows. My first question for you is, what is the best advice that you can give to young architects?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, and it's great that we can spend some time together and probably ask some of the questions or answer some of the questions that some of these new graduates coming out of school are all asking themselves, and that first question is pretty terrific. I would say that as resumes cross my desk, the number one thing that I'm always looking for is experience, but coming out of school, that's your challenge. It's a catch-22. So how do you get experience coming out of school before you get the opportunity to do a job? So I'm always looking for those students who have possibly done some internships in other firms, and then I'm going to be looking for work ethic and character, because I can always teach those skill sets necessary to practice architecture, but teaching character and work ethic are something that either you have or you don't. So I'm always looking for those qualities. The other thing that I'm looking for is their ability to understand all the softwares, and it's not just AutoCAD and some of the BIM technologies that we're using, and those are quite important, but nowadays your understanding of some of the other softwares like InDesign, Lumion, SketchUp, Rhino, the list goes on. There's probably a good dozen softwares that we use within our practice to deliver our services to our clients. So don't limit yourself to just those few BIM softwares that schools are teaching.
To follow up, are there any X factors that you look for in a resume as an employer?
Well, certainly, I'll be looking at your skills, your talent, but your experience in leading organizations outside the profession. For example, we always look very favorably at individuals like yourself who have served the AIAS. Those leadership roles teach invaluable skills that you're going to need as you move through your career and ultimately up the ladder in terms of running a practice someday. So we're always looking for those presentation skills as well. Are you presentable? Can you tell a story? Can you convince a client that we're the right firm for you? So those are qualities, those X factors you mentioned. I think that's a great term. Those are the things that we're going to be looking for, which are those intangibles that difficult to sort of put on a piece of paper, but certainly something we're always looking for.
On the flip side, what advice would you give to young architects or young aspiring architects who are looking for that first job after college?
Right. Well, I'll tell you that the best thing you can do is do your homework. Before you go into an interview, make sure you've gone on that prospective employer's website and learn everything you can about them. Not only are you going to have to understand the work that they do, to make sure that's in concert with what you would like to be doing, but you need to understand their shared values as well. If they're contributors to the community, for example, and are involved in some of the charities that you may be interested in, that's probably a key indicator that I think I'm going to fit in just fine here, and they'll look at that as a favorable reason to hire you as well. So I think it's really important that you do your homework before you go in. Understand the people you're interviewing too. Get on their LinkedIn page, find out what they're doing, what interests they have, and ask them good questions. The power is in the question. The more you're in control in terms of asking them questions, I think the better chance you're going to have.
So Ed, you've contributed to many buildings, not just here in Las Vegas, but really around the country. What would you say is your core design philosophy?
Oh, God, I get asked that question a lot. You know, coming from and doing a lot of work here in the Valley, I think we've always been accused of doing this thematic approach to architecture. And I would have to tell you that over the course of the last 20 years, being part of this architectural community, we've changed quite a bit of our approach to a design philosophy. We've kind of left the thematic approach kind of behind, and we're just doing good architecture. Architecture that is appropriate for the environment, the desert, especially here, and just doing as timeless a job as possible. Our clients, just reading your clients and understanding their needs and responding to their needs, as well as the environment that you find yourself your project going into, is probably quintessential. So just doing good quality work is probably the best design philosophy. And of course, our favorite project is always the next one.
What sets you apart from other architects who might have similar experiences?
Well, I think every firm needs to ask itself that question. Every architect needs to ask themselves that question. How do I separate myself from my colleagues or my competition? For me, it's always been drawing. It's been a challenge for me to kind of keep the art of drawing alive. I continue to teach at UNLV classes in conjunction with the AIAS, the young students going through the program, so that we can keep the notion of drawing, which is, I think, and always called visual thinking, to get your ideas on paper, and that there are no mistakes, there are only layers. So I always try to convince them that or urge them to keep drawing, because I think there's a romance between the sketch or the drawing and the architect. And when my clients, or our clients, see that we can draw, I tell you what, there's an instant affinity that we have. Chemistry is built. It's like, okay, I think I have a real architect here, and that kind of magic is something you can't really, you can't buy that. You have to earn it. So I find that drawing is kind of a separator for us, and we talk about that in our whole process. That the original sketches through to the next step, ultimately to construction documents. So that whole process is fun, and we as architects love process. But that's kind of our separator, and we're really very proud of it.
So I run into many people who said, "Oh, I want to be an architect at one point."
Yeah.
People like you and I are only the crazy ones who went through with it. So in your eyes, what do you think is the greatest appeal to becoming an architect?
Yeah, that's great. And you'll be asked. Each of you will be asked that question throughout your career, and there won't be a month or so that goes by that you won't run into somebody that also tells you, well, I wanted to be an architect as well. So for those of you who graduate, like yourself, congratulations, because it's a rewarding profession. So to answer your question, I think there's no greater privilege than to come into an office and work on something different and exciting each and every day. I can think of so many professions that you end up doing the same repetitive work over and over again, which to me does not sound very fun. So a day doesn't go by when we don't walk around the office and ask each other, are you having fun? Because invariably that's what we're doing. We're having fun solving our problems, or solving our clients' problems, and building the built environment, or designing the built environment in a way to change the world for the better.
So in light of what's going on right now with COVID-19, how do you see design and the way we build our communities changing due to the pandemic?
Yeah, that's also an excellent question, and certainly we've already been dealing with it even over the last 90 days. I see architects being at the forefront of the solutions required to make the environments that we find ourselves in, especially assembly spaces, safer. It is actually one of our charges to protect the public safety. When you swear in as an architect, that's one of the things that you pledge to protect and uphold. So providing a safe environment for the public has never been more important. So we're seeing already the demand from our clients to provide more touchless fixtures throughout the facilities we're doing. In fact, we just finished the convention center over here, and all of the facilities there were provided with touchless hand soap dispensers, water, and dryers. And this is before the COVID. And I got to tell you, our client called us up and said, we are so glad you convinced us to do that, because now we're able to advertise to our users that they can come to our facility and not have to worry about having to touch anything. It's also helped on the maintenance side. But I think when we go beyond that, one of the things, as a healthcare architect, we're always looking at how do we make our buildings safer on the healthcare side, but I think we're going to end up transitioning to any assembly space to start to utilize the kind of specifications and filtration systems and ventilation systems that we use in hospitals and healthcare facilities. I think that's what's precluding a lot of us from assembling in large spaces now. So I see that as probably one of the new codes that'll be coming out, and as a response to COVID-19, and that's just the beginning. I can see touchless elevators. We're going to have to be really mindful of providing the best built environment we can to protect the public going forward, and it's the right thing to do.
So as a leader in your firm, in the local community, as well as on a national stage with AIA, how do you define leadership?
Leadership can be defined on a number of different fronts. Good leaders, as Jim Cramer quoted in his book, Good to Great, always look out the window when things are good and praise those around them, right? And when things are bad, they look in the mirror and say, what could I have done better? Bad leaders do the exact opposite. When things are good, they look in the mirror and say, how great am I? And when things are bad, they look out the window and say, see how these people didn't do their jobs. But the servant leader, in my mind, is probably the best example of good leadership. And so you always have to look at your organization as an inverted pyramid, where the CEO or the president is down here at the bottom. So you always have to, it's a more humbling experience or position to be in. Because when you look at it this way, your job as the leader of the company is to help those above you. And they need to be looked at that way. So your vice presidents, your managers, and the frontline individuals providing the services to your clients are at the very top. Because when you really look at it, the clients are the ones that you're serving. You're at the bottom. And so that is the better construct. Unfortunately, we used to run it this way. I'm on the top and you're at the bottom, but your clients can't be at that bottom. So that to me helps me define our company. And I think we in the Institute or any other organization need to always adopt that sort of construct, because it's just a better way to look at things. And it keeps people in perspective, keeps people's positions in perspective.
So Ed, you and I walk into an elevator and I ask you, what is an architect? What do you say?
You know, being part of a number of different leadership organizations in my career, we're always taught to have that elevator speech kind of handy. And it needs to be rather quick for obvious reasons. But when asked to come up with ours, I said quite simply, we design people's dreams. And in a nutshell, that's exactly what happens. When a client comes in, they have a dream of building a building or designing a building. And it is our job to understand their needs and listen to their words and coalesce all of their wants and desires into the formation of an idea that we can actually design into a building that a contractor can build. And that whole process is nothing less than building a dream. So if I were to tell people that, it would certainly not answer the question perfectly, but it would certainly cause them to ask you more questions, which I think at the end of the day is probably better.
What is the role of mentorship in your firm?
Well, mentorship should be an essential part of any firm. So mentoring, in my mind, is critical, not only for the young interns coming into your firm, but for all of the folks in your firm as they're going through their various roles within the firm. But as an overall theme in anyone's life, you simply want to do well and then do good. So I want all of you to do well in your careers and find yourself in a position to give back, because all of the interns that are going to follow you are the future of the profession, and they're going to be running the world someday, and that's something worth doing, isn't it?